My friend Mark Winter would, in high school he was famous for saying, "Silence!" He would say it to teachers and everyone. It was pretty actually charming in its own way. I light our chalice today on our third week of our Spirit in Practice series. They've run about 45 minutes. They're rooted, I'm starting to run out of Eric Walker Wickstrom's stuff, so I've worked in some other things. The chalice words today are from Bruce Southworth, who I know, nice guy. He says, "For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul." Kind of nice, right? May our many sparks meet in communion of heart and soul. Tomorrow's services around Native American spirituality with a touch of Thanksgiving in there. And hope you can make it there too. So spirituality, there is fewer words harder to define than that. I wrote that it's a lot of things and nothing all at once. It is an invisible and really undefinable word and thing that gives our lives some odd combination of comfort, transformative energy, and meaning. Nothing is odder and more essential than having your spiritual house in some level of order. Nothing is odder and more essential than having your spiritual house in order. Very few of us would say we're spiritually grounded. Being spiritually centered and I'm only partially capable. We're going to explain that. I'm going to push you to do two things today. The first is we're going to do an exercise in social justice. Barbara will love this. You'll tear up probably. And the other one is to sort of invite us into being different people but us, like us in incredibly different environments, and see what stirs up. So those are the two primary exercises today. We usually go till about quarter of. So I invite us to just take a moment of stillness, really settle in. Just take a moment of silence.
Got it. It's live streaming, but I don't think they.
And once you have a pen, and I'm just going to read through some quotes about justice, which just really kind of moved me. This is, I'm a UU, so spirituality connected to social justice and the calling we have in this life to make this world a better place is probably the most common experience we have. I hope it moves you in the way that it moved me. These come from Eric Walker's work. And in the exercise you do in public, or if we were all gathered here, not all, on Zoom and all around, we would cut them up and talk to them. But I just want you to, you can put a pen in your hand, you can just be still and let them wash over you. I want you to follow the way they make you feel. And I invite you to think about inviting these kind of statements or some kind of this into your ritual practice in your own life. Nothing could be worse, Jane Addams says, than the fear that one had given up too soon and left one unexpended effort that might have saved the world. Isabel Allende says, how can one not speak about war, poverty, and inequality when people who suffer from these afflictions don't have a voice to speak? No matter how big a nation is, Marian Anderson says, it is no stronger than its weakest people. And as long as if you keep a person down, some part of you has to be down to hold them down. So it means you cannot soar as you might otherwise. Theodore Roosevelt said, "This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in." Jane Addams says, "The good we secure for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secured for all of us and incorporated into our common life." Martin Amis says, "Bullets cannot be recalled, as we know all too well this week. They cannot be uninvented, but they can be taken out of the gun." Susan B. Anthony, one of ours, says, "Cautious, careful people are always casting about to preserve their reputation and social standing. Those people can never bring about reform. Those who are really in earnest must be willing to put anything or nothing in the world's estimation, and publicly and privately, in season and out, avow their sympathy with despised and persecuted ideas and their advocates, and simply bear the consequences." Joan Baez says, "Action is the antidote to despair." Funny lady Lucille Ball says, "Politics should be the part-time profession of every citizen who would protect the rights and privileges of free people and who would preserve what is good and fruitful in our national heritage." She said that while stuffing bonbons down her throat on the assembly line. No, she didn't, Marlene. When someone steals another's clothes, we call them a thief. This is Basil the Great. Should we not give the same name to one who would clothe the naked and does not? The bread in your cupboard belongs to the hungry. The coat unused in your closet belongs to the one who needs it. The shoes rotting in your closet belong to the one who has no shoes. The money which you hoard up belongs to the poor. High standards. Martin Luther King says, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." Jimmy Carter says, "We will not learn how to live together in peace by killing each other's children." Daniel Berrigan says, "Sometime in your life, hope that you will see one starved man, the look on his face when the bread finally arrives. Hope that you might have baked it or bought it or even needed it. For that look on his face and you're meeting his eyes across that piece of bread, you might be willing to lose a lot. For that experience, you might be willing to suffer a lot or die a little." Leonard Bernstein says, "This will be our reply to violence. to make music more intensely, more beautifully, more devotedly than ever before. Margaret Mead says, and you've heard this before, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Cesar Chavez says, once social change begins, it cannot be reversed. You cannot uneducate the person who has learned to read. You cannot humiliate the person who feels pride. You cannot oppress the people who are not afraid anymore. We have seen the future, and the future is ours. Elie Wiesel, of Knight fame and a survivor of the Holocaust, says, I swore never to be silent whenever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Marian Wright Edelman says, the challenge of social justice is to evoke a sense of community that we need to make our nation a better place, just as we make it a safer place. And at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., it says, thou shalt not be a victim. Thou shalt not be a perpetrator. Above all, thou shalt not be a bystander. There's a Sufi saying, past the seeker as he prayed came the crippled and the beggar and the beaten. And seeing them, he cried, great God, how is it that a loving creator can see such things and yet do nothing about them? God said, I did do something. I made you. I invite you a minute of silence to paint whatever wisdom or resolve might have been drawn up into your heart. What did it feel like to hear those words? Any response? There's microphones here too. How does that make you feel?
Bit of a stab in the heart.
A stab in the heart. Why is that? I'm only saying that for those at home.
Almost every single one of them made me feel like there's something I'm not doing.
It can do that for sure.
And I also got a big jolt where it said, and I can't find it, the quote, but it's, we won't have a good world until we quit killing each other's children.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter, yes.
And I was thinking of Rick Howard, whatever his name is. He's a child, but
yeah. When we hear those stories in the news, my feeling is always just like, how about we let this person go free, but the bargain is that we get all the guns away. Like, right? It's really, humans are not capable of managing guns. We're too impulsive. All of us can be.
So I like the Sufi saying at the end, I made you.
Yeah.
Because all of this just reminded me that, I mean, you can't fix everything. One person can't fix everything, but the direction that you walk is what's important.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been stuck in my head lately, and it's a good way to get out and do something meaningful.
I think the world tells you, in the world we live in, it tells you that, like I look at my closet. I've got a closet full of clothes in Boston. I've got 2 closets full of clothes here. And then I run around in the same clothes 2 days in a row. So it's just hold it, it's fine. Yeah. And I think that, when I was reading through those and sort of preparing this, these came from the text. It really moved me, and it reminded me that when I think about who I can be, who I am, and who I want to be, it calls me to the person I most want to be. It's not the only person I want to be. I want to watch football and have friends and, even be a minister. This is sort of in that ballpark, but not exactly. Yeah, read a chat, Kel.
Frank and Maureen wrote, it overwhelmed me. No matter what I do, nothing changes. People can still walk our streets with a semi-automatic weapon.
Yeah. I think it's hard not to see we don't have an imbalanced relationship with that freedom to have a gun, with all these other values that we here at least hold. And just to go off the cuff, it feels like the commitment to owning guns really does go hand in hand with the idea that we are never going to become a better species of people. It really means that is where we're stuck. We're stuck defending ourselves. We're stuck with this kind of aggressive tone in the culture, and it's sad to me.
Well, the really, really devastating part of it is he created the mayhem and then used it as his defense and got acquitted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's diabolical.
Yeah. Yeah. Donna was saying that he created the mayhem and then used it as a defense in his defense. Okay, let's take a little breath here, and we're going to switch sides. I wrote these kind of different versions of how you might be. This is less social justice and more just challenging to yourself, your sense of self. I hope it works. I've always said that spirituality is autobiography, right? There is a certain kind of, you believe the things you believe because of your experience. And if you had different experiences, you couldn't hold those beliefs to be true. You wouldn't hold those beliefs to be true or created them. You find yourself in a Native American sweat lodge. In fact, you are a Native American. It's 1810. The heat is unbearable. The mix of steam and smoke is bad, worse, but you're tough. You've been preparing for this. This hot space is crowded with heat and people, your people. Weird and hard together. Survival and the survival of your very sanity seems at stake. Whatever OCD or insecurities you might have being with people, some of them you know, some strangers in this tight space. The emotional and physical tax the heat and the smoke bring is worse. Breathing is hard. This is hard. You more than think as you slip in some way that is dangerous, but cleansing you to the very basic sense of the you normally live with. You are slipping away, melting off. There's a different you. There's a different you falling apart or left bare as you drift between reason and some delusional land. You're nearly passing out, but in that state, all your defenses are broken. Go with me and feel at least a little of who that different you is. Who is that different you when with heat and smoke your defenses are broken? What's that more base, tougher you feel like? Take 30 seconds to write yourself a note from this place before you completely lose it. What's left of you? Now you're a worker in the court of a queen and king in medieval Europe. You're oddly proximate to not only to the region's seat of power, but more so the place that most mirrors what you hear the heavens are like. It kind of feels real. You've never known another reality. You have a position in the castle's high court. There is certainly a lot of standing around doing nothing. But other than your feet hurting and being bored, you are at least comfortable. By most standards, as your peers outside the castle, those that work the fields each long day, you are lucky. And you are surrounded by unquestionably the most beautiful, rare, and regal things in the kingdom. Maybe the world. After all, the king and queen naturally get dibs on all the valuable, beautiful, and interesting things. A year ago, you got to walk a cheetah on a leash. It's good to be there. You even have some stories you can't tell back in the village, but some you can. And although there's a perpetual danger and I suppose ill ease and constraints to being so close to powerful people who could have your head, you also get to see moments in politics and history firsthand. It's about 800 AD. You knew the queen was pregnant before almost anyone. There is a thrill to being so close to important matters, and yet a constant sadness of how little you matter. Today, standing at attention long, spear regally in your hand, ornate uniform swaddling you. When you are that person, what do you wish for? What's missing? What do you yearn for? What do you do with whatever little freedom is left to you? Now you're a guru. You become a person that people actually listen to. I mean, listen to. Not blindly, but they seem to actually get something from you. Sometimes you pause to shrug to yourself, this identity works. You're not sure why, but there you find yourself. A spiritual leader, Sometimes, a lot of the time, most of the time, your role in honor seems legit. Earned, even. And you know that you are lucky enough to be at least a little wise. But in being wise, you know how much you don't know. How do you posture yourself in that role? How do you understand who you are in that role, in this life? What fears do you or did you need to get over to be that person? What, as best you can grasp the ungraspable, is your truth? What is it that you actually believe that provides guidance to others? Why? What would you tell those that sought your guidance about life? What do you know? Perhaps most importantly, what would you tell you if you approached? Take a minute to be your own guru. It's 1831. You're a slave. It's Louisiana. That's a distinction not your people made, but that's where you find yourself. Your plantation owner doesn't even know who you are. You were purchased. You've been there since you were 14. You mostly go along. There's a little bit of fun to be had on a Saturday night. You sneak, play some instruments, have a moment for you and your people. You're so connected to the people that surround you. You rely on each other for your very survival. Mental, physical, everything. Your best friend was just killed 3 years ago. She tried to run away. You think about it too. But then what happens to your little brother? You keep hearing about this God they talk about. Liberator. Jesus does seem cool. You wonder how they picked him. Why? You've heard a few Bible stories. It seems like you would think they would pick the other guys. Not much you can really do. That's accurate. What would you hope other people would do? What would you hope the white people would do? What would you pray for them? Take a minute to jot down what it feels like to be you. Slave. With body parts that are breaking that no one cares about. A commodity. You fight not to believe that. What's there to be learned? What does that truth call you to do? Back being you, how do you understand you differently? Let's share a little bit of what we've learned or felt, if anything. Does all this not feel like spirituality? Does it feel like spirituality? Is it too hard?
I think what it feels like for me is humbling. If we compare ourselves to these different lives,
Yeah.
and the struggles and the limitations on their lives,
Yeah.
and then look at the life that we have,
Amazing.
it's unbelievably
It's
different.
unbelievable. It is unbelievable. I think about my life and I sort of think, oh, I could improve this, or boy, I wish this was different, or I want that, and then I live my life, and sometimes I sort of go, wow, like, that might not be an amazing experience, but it's certainly a pleasant and interesting one, followed by another reasonably interesting experience, followed by a not so painful experience, followed by tasty food, followed by redeeming experiences. And I think the lesson, part of it's just like, why are you ever not just grateful? I mean, and then what do you do with that? Like, how do you deal with your own blessings in a way that doesn't feel completely like you have to give your life away to then feel like you're doing enough, right? That you really are a good, like, how does that work? That's so constant, isn't it? So hard. And yet at the same time, really it's really our purpose, isn't it? I mean, it is our purpose, you know. Other thoughts, anyone at home? What's in the chat, Kel?
I can learn competence, balancing gratitude and guilt that can be very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a church about balancing gratitude and guilt. As much as it's anything else, it's really sort of what we're here to do, you know.
I was looking at the guru section,
Yeah,
and when you said as a guide to others, what would you say and do?
yeah,
First of all, I was feeling like the word humility as you were asking those questions, and I was thinking if others were sought my guidance, the best I can do is share my experience
yeah.
and what I've learned in that same sort of situation, because it's truly all I know.
Right. You can only really share what you know. That's true. Maureen, you look like a celebrity trying to hide from the paparazzi over there.
Well, first of all, my name is Marlene.
Marlene, sorry. I do that a lot.
So I really am.
I could have done that all day, actually. Thank you. And I know your name.
I know you do.
What's the takeaway from today? Anything? What do you walk away? Anybody walk away the way you walk out of here will be different than the way you walk in here. Anything? I'm never going to that thing again.
I'm going to be freeing the cheetah.
Freeing the cheetah. Yeah, there you go. You're a freeing the cheetah kind of person. Yeah.
I would say that one of the things that kept coming through today, this morning, is the pain that a lot of people in this room are feeling because of what happened yesterday in the courthouse in Wisconsin with
Rittenhouse.
And I think we can't quite get away from that. I think it's with us, and we're trying to pay attention to other things, but that is so painful.
That's fair. That's fair.
With the court, the royal court,
Yeah.
the thing I wrote down there, if I were that person, I would be seeking relevancy. You know, just standing by and watching, not being an active participant, and really not having the ability to be an active participant, only in thought.
You've got more to lose than gain in that situation because you could be a surf out in the field in a heartbeat where it's not so comfortable. And yeah, you might have more freedom there though. Someone wrote in a chat. Cal, what's it say? At least I thought it was something.
It reminds me that I need to do more, even if it doesn't change humanity, it may help someone.
Who said that?
Frank and Maureen.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it helps yourself to help.
You know, the funny thing that I sort of took away preparing it and even just saying it is that just how little I really need. Like, I have these things I don't need. So many of them. So many. Everything.
Yeah, I wrote down something so similar to that, and I forget which part, but it's so much we value is irrelevant.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
And almost every problem I have, if I really look at it, I can just shovel in so much junk.
Yeah.
It's really not important. mostly pride and ego.
As we as a church invite in our MOAD, we hired the RE person and the multicultural outreach person who's going to begin in about a week. So we'll have a new staff person around, a woman named Jewel, who's Tongan? Samoan. She's Polynesian. I think there's a very sort of earnest sweetness about her, and she's like, reviews talked about her being just an amazing kind of go-getter, and she feels like someone who can kind of roll with things and will probably push us in ways. So that's exciting for us. And I just think with this exercise, like, how cool would it be if we really became the church that like really lived up to even half of what our potential was? Wouldn't that be amazing? And we really do kind of put our light under a bushel to some degree. We have so much potency more than we, and it falls into traps. We're happy to rent the place for weddings, and I'm happy to put on this or that program, and visit this. It's like, but what if we really? Be nice to see us really challenge ourselves to be all that we could be, as the Marines say, but in a different way. Much. Marines for Justice. Tom Shade, who's a UU minister, says these nice words as our close. I'll extinguish the chalice in a minute. My friends, there's power at work in the universe. It works through human hands, but it was not made by human hands. It is a creative, sustaining, and transforming power, and we can trust that power with our lives. It will sustain us whenever we take the stand on the side of love, whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk. Trust in that power. We are together, held by that power. Amen. Blessed be. Shalom. Salam and namaste too. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Jill and Sue and Frank and Maureen. Thanks. Okay.